From MGM glamour to Broadway thunder to the dazzling chaos of Cabaret, few names carry as much old Hollywood electricity as Liza Minnelli and Judy Garland. For decades, the public saw them as royalty of stage and screen, a mother and daughter linked by talent, fame, and heartbreak. But behind the applause was a far more fragile reality, one shaped by instability, pressure, and the kind of emotional whiplash a child should never have to manage. Liza's own reflections paint a picture of a girl growing up inside a home where love could be real one moment and fear could take over the next. That tension helps explain not only the woman she became, but also the drive, toughness, and vulnerability that stayed with her for life. And right here at the start, tell us in the comments which part of old Hollywood fascinates you the most, the glamour on camera or the chaos behind it. This is the story of how Liza Minnelli finally opened up about a childhood with Judy Garland that could be loving, complicated, and at times terrifying. Stage lights.
Growing up in a place with your next door neighbor is Humphrey Bogart, but it seems normal. Try and just imagine that. Or your favorite movie star or singer or something. But there were so many people. Everybody was in the same business. So I wanted to be on Broadway.
Liza Minnelli was born into a world that already felt larger than life. Her mother was Judy Garland, one of the most famous performers on earth, and her father was Vincente Minnelli, a celebrated director with a polished visual style that helped define classic Hollywood. From the beginning, Liza was surrounded by stars, studio culture, and the sense that a performance was not just a job, but the family language. That kind of childhood might sound glamorous from the outside, and in some ways it was. Liza grew up around major names in film, music, and theater, and she absorbed that atmosphere early. She learned how entertainers carried themselves, how rooms changed when famous people entered them, and how the business could make legends feel both adored and isolated at the same time. But even in those early years, there was a split between appearance and reality. Her parents' marriage did not provide the kind of steady home a child needs, and after their divorce, that instability became harder to ignore. Fame may have surrounded her, but safety did not always come with it. Liza did not simply inherit a famous name. She inherited the emotional weather of a household shaped by pressure, addiction, and unresolved pain. The spotlight came built in, but so did the turmoil, and that combination would shape almost every chapter of her early life. Mama.
Everybody has problems with their mother. It ain't just me, and you know it. So with my mom, I think about what she went through every day, how she felt. It gave me more patience. Listening, as opposed to pretending you're listening. Really listening for what somebody's trying to get across. And I was a big comfort to her. I loved doing it because I loved her so much.
What Liza describes most vividly is not a mother who was only cruel or only warm, but a mother whose moods could turn suddenly. That unpredictability seems to have been the hardest part. As a child, she learned that Judy Garland could be affectionate and supportive, then frighteningly volatile when anger took over. For a little girl, that kind of swing could make even ordinary moments feel unsafe. One story stayed with Liza for years. On the night before her 5th birthday, she was playing in a Hopalong Cassidy outfit and accidentally kicked her mother in the head with her cowboy boot. It was a childish accident, but the response was explosive. Judy screamed at her so intensely that the moment burned into Liza's memory, leaving her shaken and confused. What makes the story hit so hard is not just the yelling itself, but what Liza says it taught her. Instead of feeling protected, she started wondering whether she was supposed to take care of her mother. That's a painful role reversal for any child. It suggests that very early on, Liza was being pushed into emotional responsibilities far beyond her age. She later connected that memory to a lifelong sensitivity to raised voices and audible anger. Even as an adult, those sounds could pull her back to that frightened little girl trying to make sense of a grown-up storm. That's the kind of childhood imprint that does not vanish just because the curtain goes up. Too soon.
Somebody once said to me, you have a choice, and everybody else is doing this, that, and the other. So trying to be with the crowd was important when you weren't pretty and your hair wasn't quite anything right. You know, it just felt so out of place. But I never tried acid. I never did anything that threw me that with my mind too much. Pardon my language. What I did was I was looking for something else that would make it more fun, that would make it better. And somebody said, try this.
After her parents split, Liza says she had to grow up fast. That's a phrase people use casually, but in her case, it seems literal. Judy Garland's personal struggles were already serious, and Liza found herself dealing with the fallout. By her early teens, she was not simply a daughter living near chaos. She was trying to manage it. She describes learning to read the room, anticipate crises, and respond to emotional upheaval. In practical terms, that meant becoming a kind of caretaker while still trying to build a life of her own. A teenager should not have to steady an adult parent, especially one as famous and fragile as Judy Garland. But that appears to be exactly what happened. The strain of that role also helps explain Liza's fierce independence. She did not step into show business as a pampered heir waiting to be handed a career. She worked hard to establish herself on stage and prove she was more than Judy Garland's daughter. That hunger to stand on her own 2 feet was probably not just ambition, it was survival. By the time she broke through in projects like Flora the Red Menace, Cabaret, and Liza with a Z, she had already spent years learning how to function in instability. Her talent was undeniable, but so was her determination. She had lived in the shadow of a legend and under the pressure of emotional chaos, yet still built a career strong enough to earn her a place among the rare EGOT winners. Highs and lows.
In other words, if I fell off the program, I'd go right back in and fight again. Don't give up.
Liza's adult life carried many of the same extremes that shaped her childhood. She reached astonishing heights as a performer, but the personal struggles never fully disappeared. Addiction became one of the central battles of her adult years, and she speaks about it as something deeply rooted, not a passing bad habit or glamorous celebrity excess. She said that after Judy Garland died, stress and grief pushed her toward prescription medication for the first time. From there, a darker pattern began. Liza later came to see addiction as a disease, something that ran through the family and demanded a lifelong fight. She did not frame it as an excuse, she framed it as a reality. That honesty gives her story weight. She does not pretend the fame made the pain easier, and she does not pretend talent could shield her from self-destruction. She writes openly about relapses, rehab, and the fact that sobriety was never a neat, simple victory. It was a war she kept having to fight. Even so, the picture is not one of defeat. What stands out is endurance. Again and again, Liza was knocked down by personal crises, bad relationships, and substance abuse, then found a way back to work, back to the stage, and back to herself. That cycle of collapse and comeback became part of her identity. Taking it back.
You see that?
Yeah.
The public, they love you.
Oh, yes, but now I don't understand.
I got it. Good evening. You know how I love working with legends.
Oh, my baby.
And I'm honored to present the final award of the evening with a true show business legend.
Late in life, Liza found herself in yet another painful public moment when her appearance at the 2022 Oscars became a source of headlines and embarrassment. She believed she had a workable plan for how to appear on stage, but says producers forced a last-minute change and that the situation left her feeling exposed. What should have been a tribute to her legacy became, in her eyes, another episode in which other people controlled the story. That seems to be one reason this memoir matters so much. For someone who spent her childhood managing a parent's emotions, her adulthood battling public jokes, and her later years dealing with tabloid narratives, writing her own account became an act of control. She could finally say what happened in her own words and with her own emphasis. It also created a moving parallel with Judy Garland, who reportedly wanted to tell her own story but never got the chance. In that sense, Liza's memoir is not only about revisiting the past, it's about refusing to let gossip, rumor, or public caricature have the final say. She had lived too much, survived too much, and built too much to leave her story in other people's hands. That's what makes these revelations land with such force. They're not random confessions for shock value. They're part of a much longer effort by Liza Minnelli to explain how a child raised in fear and fame became a survivor, a star, and finally a woman determined to tell the truth about a childhood with Judy Garland that could be as terrifying as it was unforgettable. Now it's time to hear from you. When you look at old Hollywood families like Liza Minnelli and Judy Garland, do you think fame made their private struggles worse? Or were those problems always there beneath the glamour? Let us know in the comments section below.